Hi, welcome to Module 3, Lesson 1 of Statistics and Probability course. In today's video, we will be talking specifically on normal random variables. The learning objectives for this particular topic would be, at the end of it, you will be able to illustrate a normal random variable and its characteristics. So let's begin. We begin our discussion by asking this question: what is a normal distribution? Now, there are several ways in which the data can be distributed when summarized graphically. I hope that during your junior high school, you have experienced presenting data in terms of a graph, not only the table of the frequency table. Okay, because in here we'll be able to see that the data can be distributed to the left, to the right, or varied, just like the given figures below. Okay, so these are the data that are distributed more on the left. These are the data that are distributed more on the right, and these are the data that are varied. So, having said that, sometimes there are also data that are distributed normally, and they tend to be concentrated around the center with no bias on the left or on the right. So this is an example. This data that are distributed normally. So what do we mean by that? You will notice that if you are to look at the distribution of the data, okay, most of it lie around the center, to which we know that the peak of it is at the center. Okay. So what does it have to do with our discussion for this day? Because we call this distribution as the normal distribution. Okay? So why is it called normal? Okay, let's have the definition. So a normal distribution is a probability distribution that describes how the values of a random variable x are distributed. Okay? And its graph is called the normal curve or the bell-shaped curve. Pareho lang yan. Okay? It is the most widely known and used of all statistical distributions because it approximates many natural phenomena. Later on, you will see that there are so many applications of the normal distribution. Okay? So, you might be wondering, Sir Magat, bakit siya tinawag na normal distribution? Okay? Because actually, as what I've said a while ago, that for the different natural phenomena, okay, that happened, statisticians found out that the data, when they are distributed graphically, they tend to the summary of the data tend to be at the center. So, laging ganun. Okay, they usually tend to be around the center or concentrated around the center. So, that's why they call it normal distribution. Okay? So, what are the parameters of a normal distribution? There are actually two parameters of a normal distribution. We have the mean and the the standard deviation, or we call it variance. Okay, so we focus on the standard deviation because mas kagamit-gamit sa standard deviation compared to variance. But actually, the standard deviation is just the square root of variance. If you take the square root of the variance, then that's standard deviation. If you square the standard deviation, that's variance. And we have discussed in the previous lesson that the mean talks about the location in terms of the center. Okay? Because it summarizes the data into a single value. while the standard deviation or the variance is the measure of how spread are the individual data with regards to the mean or the center or the expected value. How far are each individual scores are in terms of the mean. That's the standard deviation or variance. The parameters of the normal distribution define its shape and probabilities. So later on, we're going to see the shape, and the next video will talk about probabilities. But actually, you will see later on as you progress in your statistics and probability course that we will be using the probabilities. Okay? Now, the mean tells the location, which is the center of the peak of a normal distribution. I've already told you that. And most of the values of a given random variable are concentrated around the mean. O kaya siya tinawag na normal distribution. And changing the value of the mean will shift the entire curve to the left or to the right on the axis. So, kapag binago daw yung value ng mean, it will shift the entire curve to the left or to the right on the x-axis. So, bakit nangyayari yan? Because we know, if you have discussed that in your junior high school, that the mean is easily affected by extreme values. What do I mean by that? Say, for example, that the data will range from, say, 5 to 10 at dinagdagan mo ng 20. Of course, it will be affected directly. Okay? So, that's the mean. And the standard deviation or variance tells the width or the size of the normal distribution. It determines the distance how far away from the mean are the values of a given random variable tend to fall. Later on, we will see that. And changing the value of the standard deviation will either make the entire curve wider or narrower along the x-axis. So, mas payat pa siya or mas mataba pa siya. Okay? Pag binago nyo yung value ng standard deviation, it will either make it mataba or payat. Okay? Now, when a given normal distribution, when given a normal distribution, we can determine important locations on the normal curve by adding or subtracting standard deviations to or from the mean with a given mean and standard deviation. So, sabi dyan, we can determine important locations on the normal curve by what? Adding or subtracting standard deviations to or from the mean. Okay? So, to illustrate that, let's have an illustration of what a normal distribution is or a normal curve is. This is an illustration of a normal curve. Okay. And this is different. Okay. So, isipin na lang, perfect yan. Perfect curve. Use your wildest imagination. 1, 2, 3. I have here 1, 2, 3. Okay, now, di ba sabi natin that the center is the mean. So, like recalling your formulas or your notation, the mean is the sigma, the mu notation or the Greek letter mu. And the standard deviation is the Greek letter sigma. Okay? So, mean, ang gitna. So, dito si mean. Okay? So, the distance of this point up to the mean is 1 standard deviation because it tells the distance. So, that's mean plus 1 standard deviation. Okay? So, in here, mean minus 1 standard deviation. So, notice that nag-plus ako because in here, because this is the right side. So, ito naman minus because this is the left side. So, the sign here indicates the direction. Ha? Pag plus, to the right of the mean. Pag minus, the left of the mean. Okay? So, we have 2 units here, meaning that's mean, okay, plus 2 standard deviations to the right of the mean. Ito naman, mean minus 2 standard deviations to the left of the mean. Okay? Moving on, we have here mean plus 3 standard deviations to the right of mean and mean minus 3 standard deviations to the left of the mean. Okay? So, ganyan yung itsura niya. That's how we illustrate the distance of individual scores, okay, in reference to the mean. Okay? Now, so, ayan. I have already shown to you the relationship between the mean and the standard deviation. Okay? Now, I want you to focus on the graph of A, B, C, D. Okay? First, let's talk about the graph of the distribution of A and B. Okay? A and D, rather. A and D. Okay? So, you will notice that when we change the mean, so from 0 to negative 2, and we change the mean muna tayo. We change the mean. What did we do? What happened? So from the center, which is 0, it shifted negative 2. Okay? So to the left. Okay? Nagbago siya. And when we change the variance, square root nyo yan, standard deviation. When we change the variance from 0.2 to 0.5, notice, lumaki. Diba? Lumaki yung variance natin. Okay? So what happened? From payat, tumaba siya. Okay? Naging wider siya. Okay? Next, I want you to look at the graph of letters A, B, C. Okay? So, si A, so tingnan nyo ha. What did you notice with the mean? You can see that the mean are the same for the 3 normal distributions. Diba? But, notice that as we increase their variance, anong nangyayari dun sa graph? Okay, tingnan ninyo. Dun sa A, tumaas siya, naging 1.0. Anong nangyari? Naging pandak at tumaba. Okay? And when we increased it further from 1.0 to 5.0, ano nangyari? Mas lalo siyang bumaba. Naging wider na siya. Diba? So, having said that, we can say that the normal distribution can have any mean or any standard deviation. Then there are infinitely many normal distributions. Okay? There are infinitely many normal distributions. Tandaan nyo yan, ha? And the normal distribution is often denoted as the symbol, which is read as the normal random variable x is normally distributed with mean mu and standard deviation sigma. Okay, that is how we read it. Now, okay, for us to have a better understanding of what a normal curve is, let's have an example. And by sketching a normal curve with mean mu, with mean which is 20 and standard deviation of 4. Okay, I will just use this page para makita ninyo. So let's have the solution for number 1. Our mean is 20 and our sigma is 4. So notice, tingnan nyo to. So if we are to look for the mean plus 1 standard deviation, that's 20 plus 4 is 24. Okay? So mean minus 1 standard deviation is 20 minus 4 is 16. Moving on, we have mean plus 2 standard deviations is 20 plus 2 times 4 is 28. And we have the mean minus 2 standard deviations is 20 minus 2 times 4 is 12. And the mean plus 3 times standard deviation is 20 plus 3 times 4 is 32. And finally, the mean minus 3 times the standard deviation is 20 minus 3 times 4 is 8. Okay? Notice that the three values here, these three, 24, 28, and 32 are values to the right of the mean. And 16, okay, 12, and 8 are values to the left of the mean. So, how are we going to sketch the graph of that normal curve? Okay, let's see. Ganito lang itsura niya. The graph of the normal curve is something like this. Sorry. Okay. So I have here the center is the mean, which is 20. Okay? Tignan nyo, magpa-plus lang naman tayo ng 4 dyan actually, di ba? This is 24 plus 4, 28 plus 4, 32. Okay? So, to the left of the mean, we have here 20 minus 4 is 16, minus 4 is 12, okay, and minus 4 is 8. This is the sketch of the graph of the normal curve with mean 20 and standard deviation of 4. Now, let's talk about the properties of the normal curve. And I want you to be familiar with the different properties because these are very important, or these are important as you further discuss your topics in statistics and probability. So, any normal distribution has the following characteristics. What I mean any, because we have mentioned a while ago that there are infinitely many normal distributions. Okay? And having said that, we say that the highest point of the normal curve occurs at the mean. Tingnan ninyo. The highest point o the mean. Yung pinaka-peak ng normal curve is the mean. Okay? And it is symmetric about the mean. What do we mean by that? It is symmetric meaning to say that when you fold the normal curve into two, okay, horizontally, kung anong nakita nyo sa kaliwa, makita nyo rin sa kanan. It is like you are folding one whole sheet of paper lengthwise. Okay? And because it is symmetric, one half of the values of a given random variable is below the mean, while half is above the mean. So, sinasabi ko sa inyo kanina dito, di ba? These values, okay, on the right side of the mean are one half above the mean. Okay? These values to the left of the mean is one half below the mean. The total area is 1.00 or 100%. Take note of that, huh? And the normal curve is asymptotic to the x-axis and extends infinitely both left and right. So, ano ibig sabihin yan? We can still extend this, okay, up to 4 standard deviations away to the mean, 5 standard deviations away to the mean, 6 standard deviations away to the mean. But notice that even though we can extend it and seemingly parang, uy sir, parang didikit na si normal curve doon sa x-axis. Okay? Since they are asymptotic, okay, kahit palit yung value yan, hindi sila magdidikit kahit anong gawin nyo dyan. Okay? Parang relasyon nyo lang, di ba? Close kayo ng pa-close, pero hindi pwedeng maging kayo. Bawal. Okay? Char. And lastly, the mean, median, mode are equal. Okay? The mean, median, and mode are equal. Now, let's talk about the empirical rule. This one is also an important idea for the normal distribution. When the distribution is normal, the standard deviation becomes particularly valuable because we can use it to determine the percentage of the values that fall within a specified number of standard deviations from the mean. Okay, sabi niyan, what does the empirical rule says? That we can use it to determine the percentage of the values or the data that fall within a specified number of standard deviations from the mean. Say for example, 2 standard deviations away from the mean. What's the percentage of data? 3 standard deviations, 1 standard deviation to the right or to the left of the mean. Okay? And that's the characteristics of the empirical rule. And for us to better understand it, tignan nyo to. Now, so what does the empirical rule says? That 68% of the data are within 1 standard deviation of the mean, both left and right. Okay, both left and right, 68%. Eh sabi natin kanina, they are symmetrical. It is symmetric around the mean. So meaning to say, this is 68. So divided by 2, tig 34 sila, both left and right. Okay? Now, there are 95% of the data are within 2 standard deviations of the mean. So, meron na tayong 68% dito. Ilan na lang yung kulang natin? So, 95% minus 68% is 27%. And since they are symmetric or symmetrical, then divided by 2, 13.5. So, kung yung kalahati, kung tig-kalahati sila, meron siyang 47.5%. Okay? 47.5% each side. That's 2 standard deviations away from the mean. Next, finally, it says here that 99.7% of the data are within 3 standard deviations around the mean. So, meron na tayong 95 doon, 2 standard deviations. Kulang na lang natin ay 4.7. And hati sila. So, magkano sila? That's 2.35%. Okay? So, for each half, dito sa right side of the mean, that's 34 plus 13.5 is 47.5. Okay? Plus 2.35%. Ayun na yun. Kalahati sila. 99.7 divided by 2 is mahina ako sa arithmetic eh. Bahala na kayo dun. Calculator nyo na lang. Okay? Now, for us to be able to understand the empirical rule, let's have an example. A research was performed on the IQ scores of the grade 11 students of the City of Mandaluyong Science High School. The scores are noted to be in normal distribution. The mean of the distribution is 100 and the standard deviation is 15. Estimate the percentage of the scores that fall between 70 and 130. So we are to estimate the percentage of the scores that fall between 70 and 130. Okay, let's have now the solution. Okay, so first things first, our mean there, sabi niya, the mean is 100 and the standard deviation is 15. So the mean is 100 and the standard deviation is 15. So let's look at 1 standard deviations to the mean. Okay? Positive, negative. Ibig sabihin, left and right. So paano lang yan? Paano yan? Just add and subtract, di ba? So, left and right, 100 plus 15 is 115, di ba? And 100 minus 15 is 85. Ganyan lang yun. So, 1 plus minus 2 standard deviations. Alam nyo na yan. Plus lang yan. This would be 130 plus 15 lang naman eh. And minus 15 naman to 70. Okay? So, we stop now because sabi dyan 70 and 130. So, we are done already. So, 70 and 130. Now, let's what is the percentage? So, looking at the empirical rule figure, that's 2 standard deviations away from the mean. Okay, that's 95%. Okay, so we can conclude that because because 70 and 130 are two standard deviations from the mean, okay, then 95% of the data lie between 70 and 130. Okay, so that's it. Next, okay, the scores in a college admission test for the graduates of senior high school in a particular year are bell-shaped, meaning they are normally distributed. If the mean and standard deviation were 490 and 100 respectively, okay, what percentage of the senior high school students scored between 390 and 590 on these tests? Okay, so parang ganun lang. Let's have the solution. Number 3. Okay, for letter A, we are tasked to determine the percentage of the senior high school students scored between 390 and 590. So our mean is 490 and our standard deviation is 100. So, first, let's determine positive, negative, 1 standard deviations from the mean. That is, add minus 100 lang yan. So, we have here 390 and 590. So, we stop now. Kasi nakuha na natin. Diba? 390 and 590. Nakuha na natin. So, therefore, we can say that since okay, 390 and 590 okay, is 100 or 1 SD. R pala. 1 standard deviation from the mean then according to the empirical rule, 68% of the data lie between 390 and 590. Okay? 68%. Kasi 1 standard deviation. Okay? Now, for letter B, approximately how many students scored between 390 and 590 if there are 785 students who took the test? O, alamin natin. How many students daw? Okay? Got a score between 390 and 590 if there are 785 who took the test. So, how do we do it? Simply multiply the percentage, 68% times the number of students is 785 students. So, therefore, this is, let's multiply 68, that's 0.68 times 785 is, yan. We use the symbol approximately 534 students. Okay? So, move lang to decimal place. This becomes 0.68. Okay? So, approximately 534 students scored between 390 and 590. Okay, now, the score of one grade 12 student was 795. What can you say about his performance as compared to the rest of the score? So, what can we say? So, first, before we are going to answer that, let us illustrate first. Ito na nga lang, yung straight line. Okay? So, ang sabi dyan, this is 490. This is 390. This is 590. And this is 690. This one would be 790. Sorry. Okay, ang sabi niya, 700. Nakakuha daw yung isang bata ng 795. So, 795 will lie somewhere here. Diba? 795. Yan daw yung score ng one student. Okay? Okay. But we can see that 790, diba? 790 is 3 standard deviations, diba? For letter C, because 790 is 3 standard deviations to the right of mean. Okay? To the right of mean. We can say that a score of 795 is one of the highest scores. Okay? So, we see that 795 is one of the highest scores. Okay? How is that? Because remember that 99.7%, okay, sabi doon, 99.7% of the data lie within 3 or between 3 standard deviations to the mean. So, it's either 795 is between 790 and 890, and we know that 890 is 4 standard deviation to the mean. So that's 795 is in between 3 standard deviations and 4 standard deviations to the right of the mean. Okay? Moving on. Okay. So let's have a recall on what we have learned from this lesson. We learned that a random variable x whose distribution has the shape of a normal curve is called the normal random variable. And we also learned that the normal curve describes the distribution of a random variable such as height, weight, blood pressure, and IQ. The 2 parameters needed in a normal distribution are the mean, mu, and the standard deviation, sigma. We also discussed that the mean tells how high is the normal curve, while the standard deviation tells how wide is the normal curve. Okay? Before and last one, the empirical rule states that in a normal distribution, most of the data fall within 3 standard deviations of the mean. Okay? So, before I end up my presentation, I would like to leave something to ponder, a quotation from Winona Ryder, who said that when you finally accept that it's okay not to have answers and it's okay not to be perfect, you realize that feeling confused is a normal part of what is to be a human being. Sabi nga, to err is a human. So it's okay to make mistakes. Okay? Because we are human. It's okay to be confused because we are human. But if you're not going to do anything with those confusions and those errors, then you don't belong to you don't deserve to be a human. Okay? So these are my references. Okay, thank you for listening and God bless you.